been a few weeks since I covered the Pyrocynical story. And it's very interesting because for the most part, he wasn't affected at all by the accusations against him, which objectively speaking, he was 19 when he fantasy role played. It's inappropriate to do with a 15-year-old, right? And he did it for a while. And then not to mention his own girlfriend downplaying it all. And now the reason why I'm covering this again is because there's been more developments. Apparently the girlfriend was friends with Ivory, the accuser, all along, and they had some very interesting conversations. So I want to go over this because I just think that the main rhetoric behind Pyrocynical supporters is so ignorant, and it's, I don't know, it's weird to read, like how people justify it. Just say that it doesn't bother you that your favorite YouTuber used to talk to teens, or maybe, I guess, like, there's no evidence that he's done it as of recent, but like he definitely, as a 19-year-old talking to a 15-year-old about weird stuff like that, completely inappropriate. You know, the kink stuff, you shouldn't be doing that. I don't know why I have to say this out loud. It feels strange, right? Anyways, let's just jump into this. Now, I wasn't the only person that was bothered by the general reception of the allegations and everything. The YouTuber Turkey Tom was also very confused because he did a video, and his video had almost 3,000 dislikes. And one of the things that I actually, applaud Turkey Tom on doing is calling out a few YouTubers for spreading misinformation and victim blaming on the accuser and stuff. Because a big part of the reason why people were regurgitating and hating on the person that accused Pyrocynical of, I mean, it's weird to say accused because Pyrocynical did confirm that he talked to this kid when he was 15 inappropriately, right? But these people were like putting doubt. So it's understandable to some degree that viewers of Pyrocynical would just regurgitate the BS, right? So I think it was brave of Tom to not only do his first video calling them out, but also follow up with his Google Doc and get some additional screenshots from Ivory. So let's go over those right now. Okay, so in the beginning, Tom kind of summarizes the whole story, and he talks about how people didn't believe the leaks. And honestly, I think the way it was presented, and because Discord is such an interesting app, I guess to call it, because you can change your username, you can delete messages, you can edit them. So, people naturally tend to disbelieve things, right? And even if it wasn't Discord, people tend to disbelieve things when there's accusations, if they really support who they want to support. But yeah, he's talking about how Ivory went out of his way to prove that they were real. And apparently, Ivory found some new messages with Pyro's girlfriend, Ida, and these are from 2017, April. And you can see Ida is a deleted user. I don't know why people delete their Discords. It's kind of sus, actually. It's interesting because deleting your Discord username is as suspicious as it is not suspicious, because some people might see it as if like it's fake, while others might see it as if you're hiding something because you're hiding your Discord ID. So in this exchange, Pyro's girlfriend is saying, I don't know, man. And Ivory's saying, like, I just worry that he'll regret feeling that way because of my age, because it'll be like the 15-year-old French girl scenario, but with a 15-year-old American boy. By the way, they weren't dating at the time. Like, this deleted user is Pyro's girlfriend present day. But at this time, they weren't dating. They were just friends. And she was also friends with Ivory. And she says to Ivory, this is just me thinking from how I know Niall, or Nail. It's Niall, right? But I don't know if he would actually be in a bi relationship. I think he's more open to like mostly porn and sex, Yeah, you're right. So it's kind of weird. I mean, she's like, honestly, bro, I don't think you even have a chance. Like, I don't think he cares about your age. Like, you actually think he's got a chance to date you? Get real. Okay, and then Turkey Tom continues to prove how the DMs are real because people are hella skeptical, and I get it. So, he's proving that this is in fact Pyrocynical's girlfriend, and he further goes to prove by showing that she sent a picture to Ivory of herself with Pyro, and this is actually from 2019. Of last year in June, because, they were friends for a while. And then Turkey Tom goes on to show that, hey, to further prove that this is real, there are no reverse image search. Like, there's no other existence of this image on the internet. And within the same time period, you can see she posted a picture on the same bed on her Instagram before they came out dating, I presume. I love it, dude. It's weird how you have to go do the most to be believed. All right.
If I can just interject for 1 second.
What's up?
I will say the importance of showing that the messages are real to a redundant level. Like, you're discounting the amount of Pyro's fans that are just flat out saying it's fake. I and you know these messages are real. Like, we've obviously seen enough to prove that they're real. But what you're doing is you're now forcing the lowest common denominator of stupid person to have like so much redundant stuff here that they're absolutely going to not doubt it. And what you're also doing is you're building credibility among the victim.
Yeah.
The victim has given you all of this stuff to prove their side of the story. We've been seeing that there's no lies yet or anything of the sort, and that lends more credibility. So later on, when they say something like Ivory claims that Pyro said his age multiple times in the call, I'm more inclined to believe that now because he's gone to such lengths to draw me in and make sure I trust him.
The reason why I think it's amusing is actually because, like I was saying earlier, I don't even think it's mostly the viewers' fault. I think it's also because the amount of YouTubers, I think it was like 3 or 4, that were regurgitating the misinformation, you know? And I'm excited to go over one of those, Prison Mate Luke, who Tom has a real beef for. But Prison Mate Luke privated one of his videos about the situation, and he made an apology. So it's like, I think because of those guys, like, I think it's one thing to, you know, people that are everyday people that are like, whatever, they just consume the content. But people that, like, I think there's some sort of level of responsibility on a creator. If they don't know it for a fact, then don't spread it as a fact.
That's where I try to stand on issues like that. But also, you got to understand, Pyrocynical's Reddit was just like victim blaming the shit out of him and going, it's all fake, before the videos were coming out.
Right.
Immediately when the threads were coming out.
Exactly.
Like people's initial response, because we've created on YouTube a culture of ask questions first, cancel second. And that's really started to become a thing after Slazo, James Charles, and Pro Jared. But when you instill that, all right, let's see the evidence first kind of thing, you also take the lowest common denominator, stupid people, and those people turn around and just go, everything is fake. There's no such thing as sexual assault. All of these people are lying. We have to prove it. They're all clout chasers. And then that's not good either. There needs to be some kind of a balance between maybe not believe everything someone says without being shown evidence of it, because people do lie, and we've had many examples of lying. Right. But don't just say they're all liars. People get sexually abused in this fucking industry all the time. The reason there's so many pedophile allegations that are coming out that are false is because there's more that are real.
Amen. Hey, fucking man.
So you have to remember, it's just, there's a force at play here, and it's the uneducated viewer. And the uneducated viewer is the viewer who subscribes to Tati Westbrook when she releases Bye Sister, unsubscribes from Tati Westbrook when James Charles releases his video, and you're watching the hundreds of thousands of millions of subscribers flowing back and forth, like in the Deji and KSI situation.
I said it earlier this year, and I'll say it again. I think Nicholas Dior has been glowing up with his stance, you know? In the beginning, when I first met, I was like, whoa, this guy's fucking intense. I mean, the way he went at Sarah, and then slowly, you know, I've been talking to him. He's asked for some advice. We had some good conversations. And the homie, listen to him. Bro, do you think you've evolved a little bit?
Yeah, I do. I also see myself as part of the problem in terms of that a bit.
Inevitably.
Because I was the guy who was with Tom. We were spearheading the I'm Alex thing. We were spearheading the Save Slazo stuff. And unfortunately, the byproduct of making that such a big thing and going after Alex, the king false accuser, is that some people are just going to think that everything is fake. So I don't attach responsibility to myself often, but I would say that I think that it's my job to mention every so often that sometimes people do get groomed, sometimes people do get sexually assaulted, sometimes things happen, sometimes people take advantage of their status as a YouTuber, and it's important that we just treat each individual situation like a story that needs to be researched, vetted, and then eventually spoken about in some capacity.
Dude, impressive right there.
Well, let you get back to your thing now.
Sure, thank you for popping in, saying your thing. Part of the objective of Turkey Tom's Google Doc here, which is so funny because as soon as he released a Google Doc, everybody in his ad replies was like, oh my God, I'm so sick of the Google Docs because, you know, Pokimane, Fedmeister, Google Doc back and forth. Part of the objective of his Google Doc was to refute people's main arguments against Ivory. And many people were saying that he lied about his age, which was so strange because there was literally no proof of this whatsoever. So I hear Turkey Tom's quoting Pyrocynical when he said he never once disclosed the fact that he was 15 at the time these exchanges commenced. So obviously right there, once again, he's confirming that the exchanges happened. Now, Turkey Tom says there are multiple things that discount this claim from Pyrocynical, both from the DMs between Ivory and Pyrocynical and in the DMs between Ivory and Pyrocynical's girlfriend, Ida. Right, so you guys remember from the previous video, she thought that Ivory was 14 for whatever reason. I don't know if she had a typo or just misremembered or something, but yeah, she made it look even worse. So it's like, how did your girlfriend know? And your girlfriend, there's proof now that the girlfriend was friends with Ivory during the same time. I think it was said that Pyro deleted some of his message because it looks like he's talking to himself here and it doesn't really make sense. After the live stream, Turkey Tom posted a tweet showing a conversation between Pyrocynical and the Twitch streamer Thaf9. In this conversation, you can see Pyrocynical asking Thaf9 how to mass delete messages from DMs on Discord. Tom also shows that Pyrocynical's Discord ID matches the other ones. Tom also posted a scroll through of the Discord conversation to further proof that it's real. And here's the thing, and I'll mention this later on when I go over the YouTubers, but one of my criticisms was the way that Ivory so sloppily made his claims, right? I do think that part of Ivory's fault was making his accusation kind of sloppily. Because you guys have to take into consideration the fact that when you're making a huge accusation against a huge YouTuber, Pyrocynical's got over 4 million subscribers, right? Your evidence looks like this. I mean, this is a screenshot of a video that he took when he was scrolling super fast. And, you know, I get it. Like, it's kind of like a desperation move because he wants people to believe that it's not a fake, you know, screen recording. But damn, dude, could you not have done it a little slower so people could, like, what is this? Okay, right here. And this is probably what Nick was referring to when he was telling Tom to get a better monitor, because this is a shitty screenshot of a screenshot. Oh God, that hurts to read. One of Ivory's DMs to Pyro says, "Not only am I a minor," so at one point, Ivory did mention to Pyrocynical that he was a minor, and we went over that in the other video too. Okay, so more conversation with Pyrocynical's girlfriend from back then. Pyrocynical's girlfriend says, "Yeah, of course he would. You're his friend, right? And he's a really sweet boy and cares about people." And Ivory says, "But like, it isn't friend stuff." And she says, "Give me an example." And Ivory says, "It's like him asking really sexual stuff. Like, I bet your cock is so hard from imagining that." And she says, "Ha, I'm sorry." And he says, "I mean, yeah, I'm fine with it." In case people thought it was just weird role play, now Ivory is adding on to it and showing that back then, Ivory's telling Pyro's present day girlfriend 3.5 years ago that Pyro would talk to Ivory and say stuff like, "Oh yeah, I bet you got real hard from imagining this weird session we just had." All right, you know, keep defending your faves though. This is continuing the message where she said, "I don't think that Niall, Pyrocynical, would be in a bi relationship." And then Ivory says, "Yeah, probably. I just don't want him to be like, fudge, what have I gotten into?" And she says, "No, I think it's fine." He says, "Hopefully." So like 15-year-old Ivory had more insight than 19-year-old Pyro. And then he does his deduction for the non-believers. Okay, now this is really interesting part because if we, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna open Pyrocynical's Reddit post again. Okay, so as you guys might remember from Pyrocynical's response, he tried to say that Ivory lied about his age. But the interesting part was that even if Ivory did lie about his age, he never says that Ivory lied to him about his age. So it's weird, right? But anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's trying to call Ivory a liar. So if he can lie about one thing, he could lie about many things, right? Sure, okay. So now let's take a look at the proof that he uses about Ivory lying. Okay, so this dude had a thread. He had a thread in that there's two people saying that Ivory lied about his age, right? Now, what's interesting about this development with Turkey Tom's story is the dude that made a thread apologized. I've been thinking of deleting this thread. Most of it did not age well. And although I don't think the Pyrocynical is a pedophile or a groomer, he was still at fault for not checking who he was talking to. I made this thread way too early into the situation and should have waited. But I didn't even know that the guy apologized. And of course, the other guy within the thread apologized. So Pyrocynical's evidence is literally saying, "Sorry, it was my bad." Like, it's not legit. Like, everything from Pyrocynical's response is falling apart. And you know what? While we're on Pyrocynical's response, let's once again put emphasis on one thing here. I talked about this in the last video, but I want to put emphasis on this, okay? Because one of the things that he said was, after Ivory alleged that I groomed him, this individual then reached out to him to apologize for any hurt that he may have inadvertently caused him. To which Ivory responded with, "No, you're fine. I don't care." Why does he not care in this instance? Right. So he's trying to make him seem like, how come he cares about me? He wants to cancel me, but he doesn't want to cancel this other adult that also role-played with him? What? This adult also role-played with a 15-year-old? And he's not getting called out. Why? Is that not weird to you guys? Let's look at this. Okay, this screenshot is terrible. It's like super tiny. But why? Like, why is Pyrocynical blocking out and friends with this guy? Isn't that suspicious? Like, this other guy that talked to Ivory in a inappropriate way is still friends with Pyrocynical. And the reason why I know this is because it's very obvious that the friend sent this screenshot to Pyrocynical. When we go to Ivory's Twitter, he also posted the same screenshot saying the same thing from his side of the story, but he showed how some context was excluded. Why did this guy turn around after apologizing to Ivory and then send his side of the screenshot to Pyrocynical? That's suspicious as fuck to me, dude. Like, what? This dude should be called out too. I don't know why Ivory is like censoring his name, to be honest. I don't really get that, but whatever. Now let's see what else there's to cover. So people try to say that Ivory's a clout chaser. They try to say that because they found one of Ivory's tweets that said, all right, I'm going to first say the obvious and try not to beat a dead horse, but I hate Pyrocynical. He's one of the biggest leeches on YouTube. He's a hypocrite. He self-loads and he painfully panders to what everyone else is hating on. Weak. 2 out of 10. Next. Right? So they're like, oh, look, he's a clout chaser because he said this 2017, but this is apparently a copy pasta. So everybody was tweeting that. So that's a pretty weak argument, but you know, that's what people were trying to get him. Oh, clout chaser. Verdict. Turkey Tom says, is Pyrocynical a groomer? While I first stated no, after these new leaks, I don't feel comfortable saying no. That being said, Ivory's basic message can be legitimately proven to be true. When he was 19 years old, Pyrocynical messaged a 15-year-old sexually. But as Pyrocynical's own girlfriend states, not to be a party pooper, but he does that with everyone. AHHDJSHANF. He does that to everyone. What? You mean Pyrocynical talks to everyone and says stuff like, I'd eat your cock up with my ass, TBH? IDK, fart so long and hard on your lap and you wouldn't be able to breathe. My ass and back would be dripping in sweat. Why does he talk like this to everyone? Why? It's so weird because he wasn't dating this girl back then, but he is now. She made him look bad back then, and she made him look bad now. Since Turkey Tom posted this document, there's even more to show that unless Pyrocynical did this every time like Ivory's age came up, he had to have known his age, okay? Because again, you guys have to keep in mind that Pyrocynical talked to Ivory since he was 15 until this year, which was 19, right? Or 18, 19. Yeah. So for 4 years, they spoke. Right, yeah. For 4 years. In Pyro's response, he says, furthermore, if he is as angry, confused, and sad as he claims to be, which I don't remember, where did Ivory said he was angry, confused, and sad? I mean, I'm sure he said at least one of those things, but geez, like, way to make it seem like, if he's as angry, sad, and confused as he claims to be, then why was he friendly with me up until September of this year, huh? All right, well, let's check out your receipts, homie. Okay, so Chef is Pyrocynical, and Ivory sent some art, and Ivory says, yeah, he's a good boy. I don't know what to name him. And Pyro says, why not, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And Poggers, okay. Pyrocynical says, fart inflation time. And Ivory says, yeah. Shout out to this one, though. So, like, when did it cut off? My question is, when did it cut off? When did they stop talking with the fantasy roleplay stuff, right? And this is me being extremely like non-judgmental to whatever the fuck this cartoon, this fetish is, where they just like blow animals up by making them fart and eat other ones. Okay, because let's not forget that is what gets them off. These individuals, no judgment, but what gets them off is drawing and imagining animals eating other animals without chewing, just swallowing and then farting. As you can see, there's, I think, a dog or a bird underneath this giant penguin. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. Okay, I avoided talking about this directly because it makes us look crazy. And I think the fact that this story is so wild and so new and like what, that I think people are inclined to dismiss it, right? Because there's no nudes exchanged. But people, if they're getting off to this and he's talking to a minor, why does that matter? That's exploiting someone that hasn't fully developed their brain yet. It's not even mature age, dude. We're not talking about age of consent here. We're not talking about maturity. Like, we're not talking about legality. We're talking about having a fucking moral responsibility as a YouTuber with 1.5 million subscribers at the time. Pyrocynical had 1.5 million subscribers at the time. And he's talking to 15-year-olds like this. To further contest the claim that Pyro did not know Ivory's age, let's refer to these tweets from Ivory. Because Ivory, if you actually look through his tweets from way back olden days, he mentioned his age a lot. Yeah, I'm only 15, but the walk was actually rather nice. Added more satisfaction to the warmth of the indoors. The date says December 16th, 2016. If we look at this screenshot, I looked up Ivory's @ and I found this tweet, right? And I'm not sure if this is Ivory at 15 years old, you know, like that age. I'm not sure if this is a picture of him because I don't know what he looks like. I mean, I saw a picture of what he looks like present day, but you know, this is a picture that Ivory posted saying, drink bleach for Daddy Leafy, right? It's like a dumb meme, okay, right? And it's got lots of interaction because what do you know? Pyrocynical responded. You can see right here, someone's replying to Pyrocynical replying to him. I'm not sure if this is a picture of Ivory, but if it is, then that's pretty fucking weird. This is actually a picture of Ivory present day. He said, heard someone say I don't look human the other day. Okay, this is 2020 and this is 2016. So it's been 4 years, just a little over 4 years. So he could have grown up a lot. I don't know if it's him or not. I tried to get in contact with Ivory, but he didn't respond just yet. So I'm not sure if I can verify. But I think if this is Ivory and here we have Pyrocynical responding to him, then there's no way that you didn't know he was a kid when this is what he looks like. Before Ivory went by Eye of Bird, that's not an L, that's an I of Bird, right? Before he went by that username, he went by the username of Ivory446633. He had this screenshot saved on his phone that says born on April 21st, 2001. So obviously it shows his age. And this is an old screenshot because Twitter doesn't look like this anymore. You know, the squares, now it's circles. But apparently Twitter has a policy where they don't show people's underage, like they don't show their birthdays on public profiles. So maybe only he saw this. Maybe this is exactly what Ivory meant when he said he had his age in his bio. But yeah, like I said, Ivory has always had a history of talking about his age. 2014, he says, I'm too young to know exactly what it would be called though, blah, blah, blah. Right here, Ivory says, most likely young enough to regret this in coming years. Okay, so I think he's replying to his own tweet that he deleted. But yeah, obviously this is 2016. So he's saying he's young. He's always talking about being young, literally. You can see plenty of results. All right, let me take a smoothie break. The thing that I found commendable about Turkey Tom is calling out other YouTubers. Because calling out other YouTubers is a scary thing, you know, you don't want to get into beef. But he's calling them out for the misinformation, you know, and it's really scary and unnerving to like speak up as someone that's been through something. I said this earlier in the stream, and I said this in my previous video, that I think that the way that Ivory went about with his accusations was very sloppy. I don't think he thought it through entirely. And I'm pretty sure he actually, yeah, he admitted this in the Tommy C interview. He said that he was kind of feeling kind of manic and he just did it. But obviously it had been in his mind. It's not like he just woke up and like, all right, let's do it. Obviously it was in his mind, but like I still feel like he should have sat down. I mean, the fact that he keeps bringing up receipts shows that maybe, hey, if people out there are thinking about coming out about someone big, you should probably really gather it down, because while he doesn't deserve the amount of hate he got, like to a smaller degree, of course, like I understand some question marks. However, the way that some YouTubers presented their information is so weird. This is a video by a YouTuber called Omegon. His video straight up called Pyrocynical Response to False Allegations. Okay. So this is after Pyrocynical responded. He feels so confident to say that Ivory falsely accused him. Let's have a look.
While I am a fan of yours, Pyrocynical.
Okay, so he straight up said that he's a fan of Pyrocynical, so all right. And you know, like Pyrocynical is like an OG YouTuber, right? He was big in 2016, so he inspired a lot of these YouTubers that don't show face, because for a long time he didn't show face. So maybe that's part of this. Let's keep going.
I'm going to direct some negativity, but not hate. The negativity is false accusations have to be called out for what they are. And people, whoever you are, it doesn't matter who you are, you must be held to account for making them. You have proven that you are innocent of what you were accused of.
Is this a little cringe, or is it just me? Like, Pyro, even though I'm a big fan of you, I'm sorry that I'm about to give you some negativity. You were falsely accused, and you have proven yourself innocent. What? Bro, how's that dick taste, man? Oh my god! Omegon! And by the way, spoiler alert, we're only halfway through the video. So yeah, it gets worse.
You have confirmed that you are a deleted user, something which I wasn't entirely certain of. But you have also proven that at no point was age discussed. So perhaps we should now address the 2 Twitter threads Ivory Rasmus put out. Tommy C put out this screenshot, where it is within the DM exchange proven that Pyrocynical knew that Ivory was a, air quotes, minor, forgetting here that different countries have a different version of the word minor. In the UK, if minor. Ivory said 16, which was referenced in Pyrocynical's statement, then they are not a minor in the UK. I'm not trying to excuse it, but unless you directly say the exact number, it's always going to be hard to say whether or not that person has done something wrong.
In the UK, you know, if I wanted to, I could put my finger up a 16-year-old and it's still legal. Like, what the fuck are you saying, bro? This is so weird. Take your mind out of the fucking bucket, dude. It's weird for me to hear this guy like bat for Pyro. So weird. I don't get it. At the end of the fucking day, Pyro cynical. At the time, 1.5 million subscribers when he was communicating with a 15-year-old fan, was talking inappropriately, abusing his power. I'm not saying that when you're a huge YouTuber, you're not allowed to talk to fans. Of course you can, of course. I'm just saying, why the fuck are you talking about sexual shit throughout years, by the way? Up until this year, they talk about through years. This doesn't make any sense. And look, I get it. I get it that people read information and they don't look that deep into it. But I'm saying for a YouTuber, this YouTuber has 89,000 subscribers, all right? You don't have the impact that Pyro has, but you have some impact, okay? I'm sure you have a lot of fans. And if one of them starts flirting with you and you don't ask for their age, or they say they're a minor and you ignore it because a minor means something different in the UK, dude, you're on my fucking radar, dude. What the I mean, am I crazy here? All right, let's keep watching, because if he's a decent creator, maybe he's got some sort of take.
All I'm saying to Niall's response, Niall being pyrocynical, is that the I don't care DM was taken out of context, and I said I needed space afterwards. So I didn't want to hear from this person, so I said whatever I could to get him out of my DMs.
As you guys remember from Pyro's response, he referenced, I don't know if he's friends with this other person that apologized to Ivory for also talking inappropriately to him. Pyro used that screenshot as evidence, showing that Ivory said, no, you're fine, I don't care. But Pyro had cropped out the part where Ivory said, I think I just want some space, you know? And it's like, when someone's apologizing to you, and he literally just came out with this allegation, and he's getting shit on from all sides of the fucking internet, right? It's understandable that on the day of that you're doing this, you know, like this dude is having a lot of emotional fucking, oh my God, what have I done? Like, kind of like everyone's hating on me, right? It's understandable. He's like, I just need some space right now. Okay, but let's hear Omegon's hot take.
I'll be honest, while context is important in this context, those messages mean literal nothing. You did reply, no, you're fine, I don't care, and your explanation isn't an explanation. That's the real problem with all of this. In fact, it's a recurring problem that crops up in other tweets. You're obsessing over pyrocynical because no one believes you.
The tweet says, I said I needed space afterwards. I didn't want to hear from this person, so I said whatever I could to get him out of my DMs. Look, I get that people say things that don't translate across the board over text. I get that things can get lost in translation, but the way that he's completely like dismissing it is weird. Have we been in quarantine that long that we don't remember what it's like to interact with other humans? Like, sometimes you just don't want to deal with someone, period, right? And you just say whatever.
And there will be some that believe you, of course they will, and they're well within their rights to do so. But in truth, the majority don't. And it's not because of favoritism towards pyrocynical. It's because you couldn't give us the information we needed to confirm anything.
Dude, that's so weird to listen to. It's so weird, okay? Because like I said, I don't know. If you're going to be a YouTuber covering drama, you should be a little bit more thorough. Because I don't have any sort of attachment to neither Pyrocynical nor Ivory. I don't know either of these people. The only time I had ever seen a Pyrocynical video before this whole drama was when I saw one of his Belle Delphine videos like a year ago. I mean, the only reason I'm saying this is because I'm comparing my bias versus Omegon's bias, being that he literally confessed that he's a fan, okay? So I'm not sure if you can say that nobody's doing it because of favoritism, but he did admit that most people did not believe Ivory, which is true. And that's a problem because there's been absolutely no proof that Ivory lied. And there's quite a few instances in which Pyro lied or did a lot of lying by omission and used lies to provide evidence for his weird arguments.
Or whether it be the simple part of your age, because you've not proven that now, have you? As I don't see Pyrocynical addressing this any further, I fully expect to see Ivory Rasmus continue spurging out on Twitter because Ivory Rasmus is not getting the attention Ivory Rasmus wants.
Okay, so he's saying that Ivory is doing this all for attention. Okay, that's his case. Cloud Chaser. Okay, we already talked about that though. I don't know why. Maybe he's going to explain why he believes it's all for attention.
So I'm no longer going to give you that attention. And I implore others to do the same because honestly, you are not worth their time. You can't prove anything. And that is absolutely tragic. You're a clout chaser and a disgusting one at that. As I'm done here, I would love to know what you all think. So please do let me know in the comments down below. Hope you'll have a fantastic Monday. Thank you all for listening.
For listening. Okay, you can't tell me this dude does not put on a voice to sound more menacing. Thank you all for listening. I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit more menacing so people don't want to fuck with me.
Your menacing voice is kind of cringe.
Fuck, you know what? I'm gonna edit that part out. You're right.
Oh shit, Tom wants in. He's in the chat.
I was watching a stream, watching this guy Omegon call Ivory a cloud chaser, and it's like, who is the true cloud chaser? Is it like Ivory, who we have not seen lie once, or like these YouTubers who make videos like just like sucking off Pyrocynical incessantly, just like gargling his cum, like oh yeah, Pyro, oh yeah, you did nothing wrong,
Okay,
like,
see,
justifying this to themselves. It's so sad. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
you have somewhat stronger language than I do, but I also made the joke, like, how did his dick taste? Because, like, damn, I mean, he literally said, Pyrocynical, I'm a fan, and I'm sorry I have to say something negative, but you have false allegations against you. I'm like, what the? That's the way.
I am sorry, but you did nothing wrong. You are innocent, and I love the taste of your penis. Like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? He's so sad. And like, who's the cloud chaser? Is it Ivory, or the guy who just like makes videos regurgitating the same shit and like sucking off larger YouTubers? Like, what a loser, dude.
Yeah,
Dipster.
pretty much. Yeah, I've seen this dude's videos before, and like he has some pretty good takes on some things, but even I'm with you on this one. This video was like really shit.
Oh, this
like I can understand if like if this was covering just like the initial statements, right? Because a lot of people were skeptical when the initial statement came out.
Yeah.
But once Pyro's response came out, that kind of threw a monkey wrench in it for a lot of people, and a lot of people were like, I don't know, like, is she faking it, or is Ivory lying? I mean, and or is Pyro lying? Like, it really kind of threw a lot of people for a loop. So for him to go all in, like, oh, Ivory's lying, like, I don't know, dude. Like,
yeah, I mean, if you read his
bad
response, like, these people do not have their fucking heads screwed on straight. Like, maybe you're right, Edwin, what you said about quarantine, with like these people not knowing like what the fuck, like how social interaction works. But like, I don't know what's fucking wrong with this dude. Like, Pyro proved literally nothing. I don't understand how you can take one look at that post and be like, okay, yeah, he proved everything.
I mean,
wrong. Literally one of his arguments in it was like, well, the minor wanted it. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
when I saw Pyro's response, like, it was a more neutral thing for me. Like, my stance was neutral simply because, like, based on the evidence we had at the time, it was really difficult to pick a side and determine like who's the one lying here, right?
Yeah.
But this guy like went all in, like, oh, this is 100% a lie,
Yeah, and I get that, because, like I said, like, I feel like Ivory's evidence or backing of his own claim was kind of like all over the place, and it's hard to follow, but to be so strong about it is weird. And I didn't even realize that was his second video. So his first one has more views and 3.1 thousand likes. Obviously he shares the same sentiment, and even in the second one, it's just that I understand viewers like falling for it, but I feel like it's more of a responsibility on creators. This one also has 39 dislikes. Like, when creators reinforce what the viewers are thinking, it's going to just continue being regurgitated with that thought.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, most viewers, and I don't blame them for this, but most viewers aren't going to take the time to like research it. Like,
Exactly.
YouTube is entertainment at the end of the day for them, right? It's not their obligation to go out and seek the truth. But I think it is like, on the onus of someone with this big of a platform to like, do your fucking research, dude. Like, what's wrong with you?
It's so easy to think like, okay, well, what if someone said this about you, or what if this was in your place, right? Like, what if I don't know. So, a little update. As I'm finishing editing the video, I went to Omegon's Twitter, and I noticed that earlier today, he tweeted out that Turkey Tom's Google Doc and a video from another YouTuber made him reevaluate the situation. In a follow-up tweet, he states that he privated his videos because it would be wrong to keep the material up. Now, while I obviously don't disagree with his decision to private his videos, I feel like he could have done a little bit more. I mean, this is just 2 tweets. There's no real apology. And I'm only saying there's no real apology because it's one thing to get the story wrong, right? But he really hammered in and went in on Ivory. So that's the only reason why I'm really saying that. He could perhaps be planning on making another video, but if he doesn't, then I hope he at least learned from this situation. Because, hey, nobody's perfect, but everyone can improve.
It's just crazy to see some of the like leaps of logic that people are going to like defend Pyro. Like I had someone, for example, in my comment section today, they were saying something along the lines of, oh, well, like Discord, it updates like the embeds for links in it. So when Ivory showed the Twitter that had their age in the bio, well, like that updates later. So that's not proof that he saw it. And it's like, no, that's not true. I literally have in my DMs with other people links to web pages that don't even exist anymore. And the embed still shows that old data. It doesn't update. Like they're literally just fabricating things to try and save Pyro. And I don't understand why people are going to such great lengths to try and save this dude.
Well, it's like, to an extent I get it. Pyro is a very influential creator. And, I'm like, admittedly, I am a fan of Pyrocynical. I'm
Same.
I'm someone who went into the allegations thinking like, this guy's probably full of shit, right? Like, and he had me blocked initially, and I was like, well, very curious, he definitely lied, but I didn't say that publicly because I didn't know.
Right,
and
exactly.
Like once I went through the evidence, like it kind of speaks for itself. I feel,
Yeah.
See, I was kind of in the same boat too, because like I was a fan of Pyrocynical as well. When the allegations first came out, I'm looking at the screenshots, deleted user. You expect me to believe this? Like I was super skeptical too, but at the same time, like you said, you can't say that publicly when you have such a massive platform. Unless you have like proof that it's fake, you can't just go out and say, oh yeah, this is absolutely fake, because then you're going to end up with egg on your face later. But not only that, you're spreading misinformation at that point if it turns out you were wrong later,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was about to play. This is actually only 8 minutes long. It's this YouTuber called Prison Mate Luke made 2 videos as well on the situation. And the first video, I remember watching it and I was like, this is bad. Okay, I did not like it. I don't think it was as bad as Omegon's that we just saw, but his second video is definitely worse than Omegon's video. And I'm about to play a little bit of that for you guys.
Because although the accusations against him were really serious, there's nothing definitive that said the person messaging Ivory was Pyro, let alone that Pyro was grooming them or knew their age. At best, there was really graphic roleplay, but without proof that Pyro knew they were underage, you couldn't say that he was purposely being inappropriate with a minor, let alone that it was grooming, or yet again, that it was actually Pyro. The best that Ivory had was Pyro's girlfriend Ida messaging him about it, and although her messages were suspicious and really toxic, it wasn't definitive proof that the messages were from Pyro, and yet again nothing had pointed to it being grooming.
But it's so weird because even the Omegon guy like acknowledged the very simple English that Pyro did message Ivory. So but for some reason Prison Mate Luke is denying it in his head.
Yeah, and it's like one of the weirdest things. It's like someone's own girlfriend messages the victim out of like anger and admits that it's all true, and his explanation is like, well, it's not definitive proof. Like, are you saying she got like so mad at Ivory that she messaged him and just made up this giant story that's completely fake about Ivory like being messaged by Pyro and like talking sexually? Like, she was so mad that she admitted to all of it. Like, I can't fucking, like, are you reading the messages that are on screen right now, Luke? I don't understand.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he brings it up again and it gets even worse. Okay.
Yeah, the thing with by the time this video was uploaded, never mind, let's ignore the fact that, the girlfriend sent these ridiculous DMs. If he had actually done his research, he would know that those Discord messages were already verified to be from a Pyro account. People had already done the legwork to verify it at that time. So he clearly didn't do any research into the matter.
And recently he responded on his subreddit, so I want to go over that as a follow-up to my last video, along with Ivory's response to it all. Now, Pyro admitted to doing furry roleplay from back in the day, and admitted to doing it with Ivory, but he said at no point was there grooming.
Wait, but how come a minute ago he just said that doesn't prove the messages were real? I'm so confused. Did we not listen to that?
Yeah, let's take a look again.
Although the accusations against him were really serious, there's nothing definitive that said the person messaging Ivory was Pyro.
What?
I don't understand. Like the problem with this guy is he doesn't fucking do research.
He
his content
though.
Yeah, his content is like so reactionary. Like, and I don't mean that in like a political sense, like he's right wing. I mean in a sense that like he reacts right away to whatever he sees and thinks is correct, and he doesn't really take the time to like do the research.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Fucking weird.
I mean, and throughout this video, as you'll see, like it's not even a point I really need to make completely, but like he completely just takes everything Pyro says as facts.
it was just fantasy roleplay and nothing happened in real life, nor did Pyro ask for a real life picture of Ivory. Along with that, Ivory had never said at any point that they weren't comfortable doing it anymore, and they had also never disclosed their age to Pyro, and never made their age public at all until a year after they started roleplaying with him, and it was only on Twitter. And Pyro never saw that because he was suspended off of Twitter when they did change it. Along with that, he
like,
links
look
to
at
Tommy.
this. Instead of actually being like, we don't know if this is true, as he did with everything Ivory said, it was like, okay, well, we don't know if this thing is true. With this, it was just like all of a sudden, oh, well, Pyrocynical said it, so I mean, this is the case. This is fact.
This is the gospel.
Like, it shows us clear bias. Yeah,
Seriously.
Tommy sees video interviewing Ivory, where Ivory admits to not only not knowing the definition of grooming at the time, but also not really believing in that claim anymore. I'll link to the video in the description. I recommend you watch it for more context.
Now, okay, I want to say something about the whole grooming thing because it's interesting. I think that grooming is it's not a new concept, of course, but it's kind of like a newer, and I even hesitate to call it a buzzword because obviously it's a very serious thing, but I feel like it's been thrown around more loosely as of recent. And I was actually surprised, and some of my subscribers, some of them were like, that is definitely grooming. And the reason why I hesitate to call it grooming is because I think what was now actually with the more evidence, I feel like it is more leaning towards grooming, but like I feel like what was happening is part of the grooming process. What takes me away from calling it grooming is the fact that Ivory was already into this stuff. So it's not like he got him into it, right? It was just him continuing to normalize it. It wasn't like I don't know, but it's a gray area. I won't say if it is or it isn't. That's my new statement. What do you guys think about the grooming?
Yeah, I mean, I went into it thinking that Ivory had used the wrong word for it, and I think going in, maybe he did use the wrong word because it wasn't a claim that he could completely verify.
Right.
But I mean, if you really get down to it, after the new leaks, I would agree with you and say it probably skirts the line. I don't have enough proof because I don't want to jump the gun and say it is. But I'm not going to say like it's off the table at all,
That because the thing is that grooming is a huge claim. That's a serious accusation. It was kind of maybe not the best accusation. I feel like if all he said was like Pyrocynical messaged me sexually in fantasy roleplay when I was 15 and he was 19, that could have been it. Nobody would have gone so stuck on the grooming thing.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
I think in order for us to know if this is like truly grooming, we would have had to see the progression in their relationship together to see like, who engaged with this behavior first in the, between the two of them. And like, was this something where they were just casually having conversations and he was like, warming them up to the idea of this role play? We don't know that context. So it's really hard to call it grooming at this point in time.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, what the grooming accusation became was a point for people to dunk on and say, oh, well, it's not technically grooming. And it's like, and I agree. Maybe at first, Ivory didn't handle the accusations at best, but that doesn't mean that everything is untrue,
Yeah, and to be clear, even if it's not grooming, it still doesn't make it okay, right?
Yeah. I like the way that we're discussing it, and even in the way that I said in my video, like I was mostly saying that I wouldn't have called it that because of what it's created, But like as of right now, I think it's okay to call it gray area because obviously none of us are experts. And someone says like, we'll look up the definition. Definition of on Google, the straight first one says the action of a pedophile preparing a child for a meeting, especially via the internet chat room, with the intention of committing a sexual offense. So I mean, the immediate one, you have to be more of an expert to look more research or know more about it. And like we're not that, so we're not saying what it is or what it isn't.
After the new messages between him and his girlfriend, I'm less inclined to believe that it's that far off the mark.
Right. Yeah. The message that stuck out that felt like, okay, made it more gray for the grooming is literally his girlfriend saying, that's how he talks to everyone. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And not only that one, but it's like, Ivory was expressing to his girlfriend that he didn't know if his age would dissuade Pyro from wanting to be with him. And she was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. He's not going to care. So that really was like,
and she said, well, like, maybe not for a relationship, but possibly sexual stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and she didn't say like porn and sexting. She said porn and sex.
Yeah,
like that was her verbatim. So
true.
I'm not completely sure. Once again, if it's completely off the mark, but I'll let you keep going.
He also links to screenshots of people that knew Ivory talking about how Ivory would lie about their age for role playing. And if you're lying to other people about your age, why wouldn't you lie to Pyro about it? Not only that,
Okay, let me just double check the date of my video. Probably a day or two later. Let me see, because I'm curious. When did I cover my video originally? My stream. I did a live stream and I edited it down. Repost. Because he's citing people that accused Ivory of lying about his age, but he's using these random people without looking into it.
Yeah, we haven't actually seen any proof that Ivory actually lied about their age.
And he's taking it at face value.
And people are just, people are just trusting that that's true.
He's saying that he addresses Pyro's response. So he should acknowledge that one of those people lied or confessed to.
Yeah, he didn't acknowledge either of them in this video. If I had to guess, he, you know, I don't want to make the assertion that he lied and like he had seen it and decided to ignore it. I just think he doesn't do his research and he's kind of dumb.
Ivory had not only initiated roleplay with other people that were around the same age as Pyro and roleplayed with them at the same type of level. When one of them reached out to Ivory to apologize for what they went through, because of them, Ivory responded with, "No, you're fine, I don't care," which immediately destroys a lot of the case against Pyro, because not only does it show that Ivory's not really angry at Pyro because of what he did, but only because of who he is and how much clout he has.
Who really is the clout chaser? Is it the guy like lying in the video, or is it Ivory? And not only that, but like even if he is calling out Pyrocynical for clout, right? If everything about the actual DMs and the, you know, his posts are like verifiable, like does that really matter? You know,
but also
like,
the difference between Pyrocynical and this other guy that for whatever reason gave these screenshots to Pyrocynical, which I find to be super suspicious. One of them is confirmed to be influential and have a lot of fans. So that's a bigger reason.
And one of them's a nobody. And one of them's a nobody. One of them is someone who has admitted to doing this with like how many people? I think he said like 50 plus in one of the DMs. And you know, like his girlfriend said, he does that to everyone, right? This other guy is like a nobody. Like it's not really the same.
Wait, Pyro said to 50 plus?
Yeah, he did. If you check in the original leaks, there was a DM where if you scroll, I think it was one of the last ones, he's saying he's scared that Keemstar will find out because there's so many people he's done it with.
Yeah, he talks about how he's done it with like lots of people and he's like super panicked. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't pay close attention to that one because Ivory had said that wasn't to him. So
it was to someone else, but I mean, you know, you can't really remove context from that one in particular. I mean, if you read it, you kind of get the idea. He's talking about role-playing with people.
In the new info, the girlfriend seems to corroborate that too, because she says that he does this with stuff, you know, with people all the time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Wow, that is. I completely forgot about that message. Holy shit.
Now, I kind of wish that he would have explained his girlfriend a bit because she was really toxic and kind of threw him under the bus. And she was like one of the main reasons people took it more seriously. But I can chalk that up to her being angry about her boyfriend being falsely accused of something. And I can understand that. No one wants someone they care about going through that. And you might not know how to handle it. So, I can't really judge her for being
it is
angry.
weird. And I do want to just correct one thing. I just said I was DM'd by someone about it. The 50 plus thing was I'm getting my wires a little crossed here. Something I was told privately, that number in specific. That being said, Pyro did admit in his DM that he had done it with lots of people. Same thing.
If you look at the original statement, there is a DM where he's like super frantic and he's like, you know, I've done this with so many other people and I'm afraid someone will find out, that sort of thing. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But,
you're saying that the original imager says Pyro shows a bunch of people, but not 50 plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to clear that up on stream since I just said it, and I don't want to spread any misinformation. So.
What I don't get about this, like Ivory's just doing it for clout thing, is like people are still saying that to this day, right? And like, what has Ivory gained? Like, how are they capitalizing on this newfound
all
clout?
he's gotten is been shit on by videos with 500,000 plus views that call him a liar or say they don't know if he's telling the truth, right?
And
like,
So and then like Prismate Luke says something like, "Oh, you know, I can understand, you know, the DM from the girlfriend about how like they don't want to see their boyfriend be shit on like
even after talking."
It's like if they were more vague messages, like maybe, but like they seem to know a lot about the behind the scenes relationship that Ivory and Pyro had. They were very specific with the things that they were saying in those messages. It wasn't just like, why would you say this about my boyfriend? You have to be lying or something like. No, they were extremely specific about the details.
The screenshot was the same, except with the added line of, I just need space right now to think about it, which doesn't make the I don't care, it's fine part go away. Saying you need space doesn't change that, and correcting it now only makes it look more suspicious. And
how?
It literally adds a whole nother layer of context to it. What is this dude on about?
Dude. The guy apologizing to you over DMs is the same guy. And he also links to all sources. Make that I don't this. And also, there's no proof that the guy apologizing to you over DMs is the same guy.
How is there not? It's this, well, I mean, it's the same icon, but I mean, I guess it's a moot point because the other guy apologizes as well.
And he also links to old evidence as a way to try.
But actually, you know what? The good point is that there's no evidence that this is the same guy. Okay, but it looks pretty reasonably like anybody would assume so. And there's no evidence of anything that Pyro says, yet he takes that as, oh, no, that's true. Well, he said this and this, so we got to believe him.
Yeah, the best one was like, oh, they've done the, Ivory's done this with lots of other people. And it's like, okay, so where's the proof? And he just like took
There's
it.
none.
He took it hook, line, and sinker. Like, oh yeah, Pyro said it, so it must be true.
Those conversations were very NSFW, and there were links to the conversation being from Pyro, but by making it a grooming situation off the bat and being wishy-washy with it, no one's going to take you seriously, and they shouldn't. Because not only did you try and destroy Pyrocynical's career over something you lied about and never brought up to him, you don't really seem to care about what he did, but only who did it, because Pyro's big and you can get clout off of him. You don't care about the other people
This
you have
video
chats with.
or that particular clip just flipped, like to be not in the favor of Prison Mate Luke would be so funny. Like really, you're gonna die on this hill. Like maybe you, Prison Mate Luke, should not be taken seriously in the situation.
By the way, Tom, was that big screenshot that was shown on the screen, like that big DM? Wasn't that the DM we were referring to, where Pyro's all freaked out that somebody's gonna find out about all this role playing he's doing?
Could we go back one more time?
Scroll back a little bit to the Discord DM.
All it takes is one person, and it's a chain reaction. I was contemplating deleting my Discord. Okay, so he's even talking about possibly deleting Discord, which he ended up doing.
Yeah, right at the top, he talks about how he's worried about Keem finding out.
But I don't
Yeah,
think
he
that
really
deletes all the
That's
messages.
what Alex was saying to me today about Keem. It reminded me of all the roleplay stuff I used to do. And then I think one of the messages he says in particular is like, there's so many fucking people I did it with. It's unreal. I don't even remember who and how many. It's that bad.
Ooh.
That's
and
not
again,
good.
and again, the new leaks of the messages from Ida, like they seem to corroborate this, like that he does this kind of stuff with people all the time.
And this was like towards the end of 2018, I believe. It doesn't show the date, but I'm pretty sure. And, it says, I was contemplating deleting my Discord and making a new one, but I don't think that deletes all the messages. So it shows him trying to delete the evidence. And even Ivory early on had said that he deleted some messages, but not all the way back. So that's very interesting. He's like, I didn't ever ask for news. It was just furry shit. But yeah, it happened, and it's a ticking time bomb. Okay, that's really interesting context that he is ignoring.
I gave you a chance, Ivory. A lot of people did, and you turned out to be what a lot of people were calling you from the start. A clout chaser trying to ruin someone's career on YouTube, let alone on the internet
really
for
gave him a
attention.
chance.
And now you want to act all bitter on Twitter about how no one believes you if you can't prove something. And if you're just doing it for clout, maybe you shouldn't put it out there. Had you come out saying that Pyro was doing weird roleplay with underage fans without asking their age, that would have been one thing. Maybe even reasonable in a way. But you took it too far, and the only people who are hurt by this really are actual victims.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. This is extremely.
It's just funny that, like, the onus is on Ivory to present all this evidence, but Pyro doesn't have to present anything.
Yeah, and not only that, but notice how he doesn't even criticize Pyro for a second. Like he admits that there was, at this time he believed there was a possibility that Pyro was messaging underage fans and not asking for their age. But he's like, he doesn't care at all. Like that's not the focus of the video. It's just to shit on this one little Twitter nobody, right?
Exactly, and that's why I keep making the point that at the very least, everyone should be able to agree that a YouTuber with 1 million plus subscribers should not be talking to a 15-year-old if they're over the age of 18. Like, let alone talking to them about sexual stuff.
I hope you're happy with yourself, because next time a big YouTuber or any type of influencer gets accused of something bad, even when there's proof, people aren't going to take them seriously. Those people are going to get constantly harassed or ignored, or people are going to constantly bring up Slazo or Pro Jared or Pyrocynical now.
Damn,
Kind of like what he's doing to Ivory. Kind of like what he's doing to Ivory.
Dude,
Yeah,
Tom,
and
maybe
you know what the greatest irony is? It's like, Prison Mate Luke was not one of the people making videos about the Slazo stuff and disproving those allegations. Like I was. And, I was watching all this shit happen. And like for him to like compare this as if it's like the same exact situation, like this is not even
But
close.
this guy wasn't around. Look, this guy literally just started 6 months ago and he was making weird gaming videos. So, but maybe you were his influence. Imagine that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
You were
I hope
among there.
not. But it's like, how could he come away from my video thinking, time to just shit on fucking accusers and, accuse them of lying and clout chasing with no evidence. Like this guy is just as bad as the people who initially accused Lazo.
4 months ago, he had 100 subscribers, and now
blew up.
he has
He's been on the grind.
There's been quite a
141,000.
few
Yeah,
commentary channels that are blowing up this year. It's insane.
And I didn't accuse Pyro of any crimes because there wasn't any proof, and now we know there wasn't no crime. The only crime was committed by Ivory. But when you don't let potential victims...
I agree, Luke. That's so crazy, dude. Innocent until proven guilty, no false allegations, don't make claims without evidence. I agree.
Here's the thing, guys. Okay, like me, or any tipster, Target Tom, anybody that makes YouTube videos about drama, none of us are the law. None of us are pretending to be legal experts. So this whole like crime, nobody committed a crime. we're not reporting on crimes. We're reporting on drama and things that are amoral, like that are completely lacking and that shouldn't be fucking been done. So I think it's weird that he goes to like, yeah, well, nobody broke a law except for you. You falsely accused someone. Like, what?
I think you're the problem. I think you're a really big one. I think Ivory caused a lot more damage to the internet as a whole and like victims than I think he did to Pyrocynical, because people are going to
Oh wait, what did I say?
more
Pyro's a
damage
victim?
to the internet as a whole and like victims than I
Pyro's a victim in his own right. I mean, people will come out against influencers. Oh,
think he did
Yeah,
to
man,
Pyrocynical,
totally
because
agree.
people are going to use what he did to ignore victims, and that's only his fault. But when you don't let potential victims talk, I think you're the problem. And it just sucks that the internet is turning into this extreme of you either believe a victim immediately or you never listen to them, and it's terrible. But that being said, thanks for watching.
Yeah,
Like and
it
subscribe
seems
to
like
the-
you're contributing to the side that never listens to them. Really,
No.
it really does
I
seem
mean,
that way.
and the thing to be clear, like, there's nothing wrong with having a healthy level of skepticism when one of these allegations come forward. Because I mean, just look at the past few years, we've seen so many false allegations. So there's nothing wrong with being,
Skeptical.
a little bit skeptical.
sure.
But like this guy's just going in like hardcore, like you're just absolutely lying, and it's just ridiculous.
It had to be like a third of the video that was shitting on Ivory. Now,
Yeah.
guys, considering knew I was gonna go live today, I went ahead and tweeted Prison Mate Luke, and I said to him, "Did you private your second video on the Pyrocynical story because you're working on an update? Any remorse for Ivory? Because by the way, guys, he didn't private the original video, which has the same kind of vibe to it, but not as intense. It's not as intense towards Ivory, but it still is very anti-Ivory and is similar to Omegon type of thing." And as you can see, 505,000 views
Even app-
and 20,000 likes, 600 dislikes. Do you remember how many views the second follow-up video had, Tom?
Yeah, it had more than 400,000, I think, or just about. So I mean, it wasn't that far off from this initial video.
And this one has
and
20,000
so when you look
likes.
at that, when you look at those numbers and like the misinformation that's being spread in these videos, it's no wonder they used about the details. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel like playing you guys a video, but you can go watch it if you're bored. But it's got the same exact vibe of like being very anti-Ivory and pro Pyro. When I tweeted him this, he did respond. He said, "I go more in depth here, but I have talked with Ivory since, and it wasn't fair to keep that video up given the things I overlooked in it and the new evidence that came out. I don't want to make another video to milk the situation, so I don't plan on one."
Yeah.
Let's see. So here's his update. And it's sitting at 1.3 thousand likes. So, okay, so we could say a few thousand people at least saw it, but that's not nowhere near 500,000.
Right.
And interaction is significantly lower. So,
I think what you should do is post an update video that's an apology that's unmonetized. That's what I think you should do, honestly.
I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, this is a YouTuber that's been around for literally 6 months, and he only started doing commentary for like about 4 months ago, for 4
Yeah.
months.
And he uploads like every day. I mean,
Yeah,
look
he
at his
uploads every
channel.
day. And
It's
he
not
could
a
do-
big sweat for him to upload one apology and the next day go back to normal uploads, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think it's
Yeah, that-
unreasonable. Yeah, it's not unreasonable to just like go over a few points from the Google Doc or why he changed his mind.
Sorry.
Being
you
a
go.
part of the commentary community and like not very long basically, and already fucking up this big, like this early on, that's a pretty bad look, man.
So, okay, this is his response just for full transparency. Just so, I mean, I respect that he replied to me good, because obviously I'm not on his team with this. But he says, "Hey, I've been sitting on this for a bit, and I think I should address some stuff. Recently, Turkey Tom made a video on the Pyrocynical allegations and pointed out a lot of things that me and other YouTubers that I covered it missed. The reason I didn't respond is I really didn't know how to do it in a meaningful way. Well, we're giving you some advice, you know. You have a chance, bro." But recently, Tom released a doc containing all evidence he used, including more, and I don't feel comfortable ignoring it anymore. Make a video. There was a lot of proof of Pyro knowing that Ivory was underage and all of the messages were real, some of which I ignored, trying to justify it as giving him the benefit of the doubt when he didn't deserve it. Along with that, I want to apologize to Ivory for calling them a clout chaser and accusing them of taking away from the victims. Although I'm not 100% on Pyro being a groomer, Ivory calling him that doesn't take away from his inappropriate behavior with a minor at the time. I'm sorry for trying to diminish that. I don't plan on making another video on Pyrocynical drama, and I think it's unneeded given the amount of that are going to be coming out on him and the recent developments, but I want to talk about it to let you guys know that I haven't ignored it. I just didn't know how to respond properly, and I don't think ignoring it would be fair. I recommend you check out Boblax's reading of Turkey Tom's Google Doc. See, he's saying he doesn't want to do a video because plenty of people will probably follow up and cover it. But it's not about doing a video because other people are going to cover the updates. It's about correcting the record for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And again, because people in his audience may not watch the other people. So like his audience will be potentially left in the dark if he doesn't update it properly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're human, and like sometimes we do fuck up topics that we talk about or whatever. But as long as you're like willing to own up to the fact that you made a mistake and correct the record, like there's nothing wrong with that.
And you know, I think he does have potential because, like I said, I only saw one other video and it was good. Now, for a last minute update, in a positive turn of events, prison mate Luke actually ended up changing his mind from just a community post and did end up doing a video.
I should have looked into it more, and I shouldn't have acted like everything was set in stone when it clearly wasn't. And I was needlessly mean to Ivory and what they went through. I reached out to Ivory recently and I apologized for that.
His response was very mature and it honestly earned my respect. I mean, not that it means much from a stranger, but I could see the growth.
I'll try to be better with allegations like this in the future, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry.
Now, this is kind of a side note, but someone replied to my comment on his video and said, "Congratulations, you have successfully bullied another channel into doing what you say." And 6 people like that? Come on. Nah, I'm kidding. Look, if I need to be put in check, y'all put me in check. And honestly, I don't really consider what happened in this live stream to be bullying. I was live reacting to several videos and also had some co-hosts. Now, maybe some co-hosts said some harsher things, but to call anything we said in the live stream bullying, it feels out of pocket. Saying that I bullied Luke into doing what I say makes it seem as if he's doing it only because of my opinions on my stream. I don't even know if he was watching, but I personally want to give the homie more credit and assume that he did it out of his own free will and not because of my opinion. Were my reactions and opinions really bullying? Now, Tipster, do you think that Pyrocynical is gonna make a video addressing this, or do you think he should?
Considering that more information has come out and like this is blowing up a lot bigger than it had initially, I think he's gonna have to. I really do. Not only that, but like some of his audience, like the people that just watch him on YouTube, they probably have no idea like what's going on. So it probably would be a good idea for him to address it on his channel. I know he was probably trying to avoid that with the Reddit thread, but like this thing's really blowing up. So he's going to have to at this point.
I agree. Okay, so British YouTuber iNever, his commentary, he tweeted out saying, "I have seen people defending Pyrocynical saying, oh, it's only roleplay. He admitted to sexual roleplay with a 15-year-old. How the fudge is anyone justifying this or defending this? How the fudge is the community allowing this? What the actual fudge?" 7.8 thousand likes, 100 quote tweets, and 382 retweets. He goes on to say, "I imagine Pyro will make a video response. He kind of has to. I don't think he will. As of
You
right
really
now,
don't think so? Why not?
I don't think there's enough pressure. I mean, like I just looked at his social blade. There's absolutely no red. So he's not suffered at all. So why would he? He would only attract more attention. Someone like me calling him out is like, I'm not in a circle, right? Like I attract mostly female, or like my audience is not the same as his. Like he does like meme videos and like attacks like Logan Paul, Jake Paul, like Lily Pons, those easy targets and stuff like that. I don't do that kind of content. Basically, I don't think that we have that much of a shared demographic. And I think, look at this impact, you know, like 7,000 likes, almost 8,000 from just a tweet.
I think what would be interesting to see, and I haven't actually checked this myself, is to go to some of Pyro's more recent videos and look at the more recent comments and see if anybody's asking about it in the comments. That might put some pressure on him.
Pedo
cynical. Yeah, there's some people calling him out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's not a huge impact, but it's definitely happening. Okay. You know, some of these comments actually do show
that Henry Stickmin one. If you scroll up just a little bit, that one's kind of weird. I still love your videos, but I hate you. I won't unsubscribe due to the videos being good. But man, you messed up. You really messed up. What the heck, dude?
Okay.
Hey, you're kind of a bad dude, but the videos are dope though. So I'm sticking around.
This is what I mean. Dude. You can tell these are written by teenagers, dude.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
And I don't have that audience. I think, you know, no offense to iNabber, but I think he probably has more of a teenage audience, you know, and they make the same kind of content. He makes similar content to Pyrocynical. Damn, why did you pick jerking off over using Logic? Okay, so
people are starting to call him out for it.
Yeah. Interesting. Look at this.
Oh, somebody said Pyro likes cuties. Oh, God.
Really, Pyro? I watched Diesel Patch's video on this, and wow, man, you are way in the wrong. However, I still dislike Ivory. Okay. Cool. Now, see, like Diesel Patches, I thought that was a big influence, and at first he made a video against it, but it's good. It's respectable. Like that comment alone shows the impact of why it's necessary for Prison Mate Luke to update his video because he had the most views as well as Diesel Patches on the entire situation. Both of them had the most views. Like as of right now, I'm not. I think with my video also coming out, and I'm sure a couple more videos will come out. But as of right now, I don't think he'll respond. But if he starts seeing more results and more comments like throughout the week, but I think someone like iNaber making a video would be like, definitely he's gonna respond in a video, like no doubt.
Yeah, if bigger commentators and bigger figures in the community start commenting on it, like he's gonna have no choice but to respond, and that's why I think he is gonna respond because, like I said, the story is starting to blow up to the point that bigger people are starting to pick up on it.
If Pyro didn't know his age like genuinely, then why is a million sub massive YouTuber, biggest commentator in the community, not asking for age?
Yeah,
I mean seriously, that could have been a 12-year-old. Like if that was a 12-year-old, like what? Like
yeah, there's no excuse for not asking for age if you're going to have conversations like that. At the very least, you need to try and verify someone's age if you're going to have those kind of conversations. I would even argue as much as because this person is sort of an internet celebrity and they have a lot of influence, even if this is someone that you're like they're an adult, like you still have a position of power over that person because of your influence.
100%.
Yeah.
And I every now and then when I bring that point up, people say, well, what, can people not date a fan? And I'm like, yeah, of course you can, but it's like, you got to keep it in mind to not take advantage of it. I personally knew of Ivory vaguely back in 2017, and I knew he was 15, 16. Everyone in the community back in 2017 knew each other. So the fact there's either a pretending of not knowing of each other or not even asking for his age is fudged. He says, if Pyro responds on Reddit, that says a lot. It has to be a video response. And there are DMs showing everyone knew Ivory was 15 and was open about his age. And there's no looking past this. And there are a lot of real serious things, disgusting things.
Because yeah, iNaber was a part of that, British commentator community. He hung out with people like Alex and, Pyrocynical and like all that crew. So like if he's saying everybody in that friend circle knew that this person was 15 years of age, then that's another mark against Pyro.
So I said to iNaber, I said, look, honestly, I'm not banking on him making a video response, to be honest. Enough misinformation has already spread, making him look good for whatever reason. I'm doing a stream updating the info, so it'd be great to see you covering it too. Then I think he just might. Like I said, I think that Pyro will definitely respond if someone like iNaber, I think he's got the power. And then he says, nah, bro, I think like someone like me or you covers it, he will have to respond. Like, no, bro, listen, it's no audience overlap, not as big at least. I think I will wait for a second response before I make a video, but even if he did not know his age somehow, again, the question must be asked, why would a million sub YouTuber with such influence not check people's age before engaging in sexual interaction? So, I DM'd him, I'm like, bro, I still think you should do it. And because how long do you wait, right? Well, guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe. Look, even if Omegon doesn't make an update, then it looks like Prison Mate Luke just might. And if he does, that is very respectable of him because, he was going in, and but at the end of the day, I feel like we can communicate with people and get him to see right. Because like I said, this guy's only been around like doing commentary for 4 months. And if he's willing to accept the criticism, that's a good step forward. Cheers.